Great, thank you very much for joining. Really, really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to being with all of you and going through this. And so what we're going to be looking at today is alternative qualifications. Now, this is something that is not theoretical. It's something that I've put into practice, something I've done. We've taken people who had really proud of this actually. We're taking people who had not even a degree and we got them up to qualified via various routes. And one of those people as well is also starting their masters in education this year. And so it can be done, and we're going to go through how it can be done in different contexts. If you've never been with me before, I'm going to talk a lot to try and maximize delivery opportunity. At any point you've got a question, please note it in the chat and we're going to come back to it. And we do have breaks and different points where we can do that. You'll follow a one-to-one link. So if anything that you like or you want to hear more of, I'll be happy more than happy to do that. And there will be some video extensions of how some of the items that I show you will work. Now, why do we feel we know what we're doing with teacher training, especially in this realm when we're talking about alternative qualifications? Well, we've actually been fortunate enough to develop and train nearly 8,000 teachers around the world. I think it's 8,600 now, but that's in it. We've got a 95% completion rate within what we do. We work across the world, so we know what works in different areas. And we have a lot of short courses, compliance, and we have some level 3 and level 4 qualifications. And we've done dozens of people for QTS as well. And with our technology, we've been selected to deliver the Super Teaching School program. So if you're not 100% sure of this, so I'll actually just pop this into the links so that you can share it. So I'll just pop that into the chat myself so you can see it there. So this is 6 schools that are going to be in a situation where they are having teaching school hub support from like the best schools in, and we are the first that was chosen to help one of the 6 schools to go and do that. So we do know what we're doing, and I hope some of what I say to you today stresses that. So this is series 6, coming on 6 in the series, and obviously there'll be videos of the ones you want to watch before, but this is the stuff. We're going to get into now some of the focus and what I'm going to be talking about. So in the first part, we're talking about the rationale. Like, what are we talking about when we talk about qualifications? What are we talking about when we talk about knowledge? And what are we talking about when we get into a situation where we're looking at both? I'm also going to try and highlight this need for flexibility. I think the route that a lot of people use is good in terms of going to an external provider and getting training, but I think there needs to be much more need for flexibility. The skits kind of knock open the door. The GTP, if you remember the GTP, that knock opened the door, but then we need more flexibility with that, more power for schools. That's my kind of feeling, and that's why I'm going to kind of discuss with you. And also then to give that power to schools, to power to school leaders to know what they're doing and how they want to do it and how they want to develop. So that's what we're going to cover in the first section. And the second section, we'll be actually looking at some of those qualifications, how they are, what they do. So coming in then first, the first area, we want to think about the knowledge and the qualifications. Now, I have a huge problem with this. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I did something called the GTP, and that's a graduate training program. I did not have any regular or pre support for teaching. I was teaching within 7 days of being within a school, and you just had to learn fast. And that, for me, my personality, that suited me fine. And obviously, most people do a PGC, and obviously that will suit them fine. But one of the things that I notice more and more as I go into teacher training is there's a difference between being ready on paper and a difference between being ready in class. Now, like with most things, I think it's about mastery. I think it's about hours spent. I think there's so much good that comes from the information and the knowledge, but I think the knowledge and the practical application can be more powerful than maybe getting a qualification before you get ready to class. Because I think the time in class, being ready in class, shapes the knowledge that you think you need, and you can take that obviously to any level. So I just like to think about the beginning of the difference of ready on paper or ready in class. I think it's really important to note as well that research shows it doesn't matter if you have a degree or a PGC in terms of the quality of what you can do to teach. What really, really matters is the quality of your own mentor in how good a teacher you will be. That's the only thing that we know. Obviously, I'm not saying it doesn't make a difference. Obviously, it makes a difference. But the key differentiator, something that in every single instance makes a difference, is the quality of the mentor. And I wanted to actually touch upon one of these ideas here, just qualifications and knowledge, qualification knowledge, because you might say, oh, I want someone really qualified. And I would say, actually, I want someone with loads of knowledge. And one of the key things there is to think when you're qualified or for a qualification, most start a qualification and some finish it. But if you focus on knowledge, you get a very different dynamic. All people will start seeking knowledge, and actually they never finish. And so I've got much more of an idea where the qualifications are more like little increments in your path to knowledge, rather than being junctions where you say, right, I finished that now and I'm done. And we've built a system around that, which I'm going to show you. And this is the part that's key. If you bear this in mind and think that, okay, well, we've got knowledge, which is just as important as qualifications, and qualifications are like a piece of punctuation at the end. And we want to make sure that people are ready in class or being ready in paper. And we want to make sure that people have this attitude towards training, that they all start and never finish. Then you've got the idea of continuous training that sometimes becomes qualifications, rather than doing qualifications and thinking you've completed stuff and then dismissing some of your continuing training. So I just want you to have that in mind, continuous training that becomes quals, rather than different quals as well, rather than building. Now, to touch upon the need for flexibility, which is why the alternate qualifications have become so important, I'm going to look here at the idea of where we are. And this is a perfect time post-COVID to detach our education from our best practice, from our qualifications, from the informal CPD. I think a lot of the time we bunch them all together. This one gets absolute mastery over everything. You know, I'm doing a master's, I'm doing a PGCE. And the idea here of best practice probably comes a second, and then the research on education comes third, and the informal is basically the stuff we have to do. And when we're in this situation where actually we don't need to send people anymore, or post-COVID, obviously you're here doing this webinar, this could be a webinar on anything for anyone at any time in any place, we've got to detach now those items, so we don't have to think necessarily that qualification can only be done in one space. Similarly, we can't think that learning can only be done around an institution. So much of it now is allowed to us to be flexible, and it's there for us. And also just trying to think, well, what do we use our qualifications or alternate qualification only for? Are we using them to develop, to support, to help to keep someone, or to bait someone to improve themselves, etc., etc., etc.? And as I mentioned in some of the other items, you think about things being led by your values and ethos. And again, that's a big part of flexibility. And when you are leading things by your values and ethos, you are in a situation to actually look at alternative qualifications in a different way. Now, the last item on this is where it gives you power. These alternate qualifications, they will give you power. So I'm going to show you to them in the second half, go through them in some detail. I think one of the biggest issues we have in teaching is transience. People don't stay. People move on quickly. And also, we don't have the people in our community necessarily the same as the people in our schools knowing they're going to be there. So one of the things about being able to offer an alternative, detached way of actually training your staff is that you have them in a situation where you can recruit local. So you can look at people who are closer to the area, closer to the need of the area, maybe who know more about the geographic of the area, who want to improve the area, and you can actually look at recruiting them. With some of the items that we're going to talk about as well, you don't need to think of your recruitment drive and what you're doing as so much of a lottery. I think you can get any, you know, as long as they've got the basic ingredients, any person up to being a good teacher within 2 years, or if not better, you know, good with flex of outstanding or whatever you want to call it. But I've never seen anyone take that long to become good. If they're not going to do it within like 9 to 12 months, they're probably never going to become superb. But within 2 years of good mentoring, they can all become good. I've never seen a teacher not become good within 2 years. So if you start to think when you're using alternate qualifications and alternate training systems and detaching from the university, as we said earlier, you can actually try and think of a 3-year plan to grow many of your own teachers with different qualifications, and then recruitment is less of a lottery. And we all know how that feels, you know, when you're riding high at the end of the year, everything seems like it's going well, and then you get 2 key members of staff, you know, hand in I was about to say transfer requests, and that just shows how much I'm missing football, but they hand in their notice because they're going to another school for X or for Y or for Z, and then you're always scrambling to try and get around that and to avoid that from happening in the rest. When you start to actually use your own alternate qualifications to think of growing your own staff, things become much less of a lottery, and then you can have people coming on short-term or long-term without a massive financial commitment to them in the qualifications that I'm going to show you. So I hope that gives you some idea in some of the first elements. We talked about the knowledge and qualifications, the difference between ready on paper, ready on class. We talked about the difference in the need for being flexible, and especially this post-COVID, where we're going to detach things so you can give a lot more of your own training. And then we talked about the element as well, or thinking about why we get power for schools. I'm a big believer in this, in terms of recruiting people locally. They care about the area, they know what the kids go through, etc., etc. Well, how about we would be able to start, and as you know, probably from after COVID, a load of people also won't be in a position to necessarily continue jobs in the roles that they had. They may be looking to go into teaching, so it makes a huge difference and change. Now, in the next section, we're going to talk about all the different qualifications, what they mean, etc. But I just want to stop there, pause there for a second, come back and just note some conversation items and some takeaways so far. So I will be pausing here, turning off my screen share, subjecting you sadly to my entire face as it was, and then from there, really, really appreciate you just feeding back, just giving me some thoughts and ideas about what you thought for the first session the first section of things that I mentioned. So anything at all with regards to detaching knowledge, or maybe detaching the university, or the kind of things that you're thinking about, I'll just give you a couple of minutes for that, and then we'll come back into the item after, or straight after that. So I'll just give you a minute just to compile some ideas. Hi, Paul. Thanks for coming. Hey, Sam. Hey, Susan. And hey, Gertrude. Great to have you all with us. Not the normal numbers we've had for this one, but that's because everyone's gone back to school to start to get, their students with them, working with them again. Really, really pleased that so many people are back in school. So hopefully, tomorrow's one has about 56 attendees signed up for it. So there'll be more there. Thanks, Susan. That's a really good question. The best ways to attract local talent. Well, what we did, this is 100% true, while I was ahead, we had a quite unique situation where we didn't have many teachers who wanted to join us, because the school I was at the time was failing, dealing with quote unquote the worst kids, and obviously that's just a stereotype. So we tried to be very unspecific with our advert. So we started everyone off on training. Most of the teachers that we had with us, eventually they started with us. So they would do this alternate training method with us in this way over a couple of years. And essentially what we did is we put an advert out on Gumtree, and the advert was very, very generic. Are you a teacher or interested in teaching? Would you like to work with young people? Do you have any experience, or are you completely new to the profession? Would you like to gain qualifications while you learn, etc., etc.? And it said, if you have any skill or need in blah, 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 then we would be happy to hear from you. And I kept that advert on Gumtree. I think it was £100 for 2 months. That was year round. That was always running on Gumtree, because we wanted people who were from the local area. Gumtree is the kind of place that people in the local area look. And it got people started on the teaching career. And I'm very proud to say, we qualified at least a dozen people through. And obviously when I left, there's probably about 40 different people had started training in this alternate route when we were going through it. And it really helped me grow my own, really helped me deal with the issues and situations that we had in my school more contextually. And that was one of the key ways of doing it. Now with Facebook being such a prevalent item, etc., I'd be running these soft adverts aimed at, because you can target so well with Facebook, people in the local area, targeted to this, that, and the other, helping them, pinpointing exactly the kind of person that you want. And you remember, as brilliant as it is, I came to teaching as a GTP. I'd kind of been around the block a little. I think I was 23 or 24 when I got into teaching, rather than going, straight in after uni, and then I did this and the other. Those couple of years in industry really help. So sometimes when you get somebody who's 30, 33, looking at career change, knowing that it's not going to cost them a fortune, or cost them a fortune of time in an institution to get trained and qualified, it's something really, really important. And I'm going to show you those processes soon. I hope that was of use, Susan. Please do feel free to hit through with any other questions as well. I'll just give that another couple of seconds, and then I'll move on to the second part, where we go into the qualifications and what they are, how they sync in detail. My colleague Sawa is with me. Hey Sawa, how are you?
Great, thank you very much, Leon.
Thanks, buddy. Did you get the link from Blair that has the qualifications and the rest?
Yes, I'm about to send it right now. Thank you.
Brilliant. Just I'll do that. When I mention it, please drop it. No, my absolute pleasure, Susan. It's really, really useful. But believe it or not, Gumtree, Facebook, the whole, you've seen everyone come away from. Obviously not come away from it. Obviously the test is still really, really influential on that. But you've seen people come away from the test where they're trying to do their own posters outside their school. Obviously that has relevance. There's people who got adverts on the buses, that has relevance. But the Facebook targeting is probably the most cost-effective form of marketing that you'll ever do, because and the Gumtree, because Gumtree people go there looking for jobs. So as long as you've kind of categorized your job properly, people are on there. But the Facebook targeting, if I was going to do that now, if I was ahead now, I would be actively saying, right, I'm going to be starting you. You're going to be this. It's a 3-year program. You're going to start as a TA. You're going to do this. You're going to learn this, and then grow, and open that quite wide. And as I open it quite wide, what it allows me to do is to try a few people, to have the experience with a few people. And this is much better than kind of saying, right, you're £9,000, you're going to commit either to a PGCE or to whatever else it is. That's very expensive for you, and the guilt on the candidate. Because I would say 20% of all the people that I took on after an interview process that wasn't quick or easy, 20% of the people left. teaching wasn't for them. Even though it was much more cost effective and it would be better, teaching wasn't for them. But I'll take you through the route that we used and the mechanism and the way that we actually used it now. So I'm just going to try and upload my presentation again and see how it suits me this time. Now, the key thing when I think about when we're doing these items is to make sure that we're trying to get staff who believe in what we believe in and can obviously continue and follow the items. So anything that I'm going to do now, you have to remember that your context is the only thing that can really tell us whether it will work or not. That's the only thing that will tell us whether something works or not. Does it apply in your context? Now, some of what I'm going to say doesn't apply directly to primary. It does apply to SEN, but the way that it applies to primary, it can be done. It's just not something that I would rightfully choose to do unless you do it in a certain way. Now, the element that we're going to move on to then is looking at the first of these alternate qualifications. Now, we have two streams in what we do. We have the traditional route. And to explain this, actually, I'd have to probably come to what I would call the off-qual grade level descriptors. Now, I don't know whether you're familiar with this. I'm just trying to find a space where we have a space here. And I hand this out. Right, so this is, obviously that has been withdrawn, but that's not necessarily the focus where we are in what we're doing. There is a European difference one now. What I'm trying to get to here is this idea here, set by Ofcall, which is the idea of level descriptors. Obviously, it's been revised since then, but the level descriptors are basically things that show and appropriate that we can do, or we can know, or we can demonstrate a certain thing. Now, the way that Ofcall works, or the way that the actual training works, is it starts all the way from level 1, level 2, level 3, and it goes all the way up to level 8. Now, level 2 is basically up to C. If you achieve a level 2, that's a C grade. And if you achieve a level 8, that's the equivalent of a PhD. Now, working your way down from that, level 7 is a master's, level 6 is a full degree, level 5 is the majority of a degree, level 4 is an entry level, and then level 3 is your A levels, and level 2 is your GCSEs. So what you may never have heard of before are these, what I call sideways qualifications and training. Now, they are actually the most popular, in fact, this is the most popular course available anywhere on teaching. And what it is it's called the Award in Education and Training. And essentially it's for plus 14. I'm just going to go to an element of it as well, where you look at the award in training. And the course actually helps you to understand the fundamentals of teaching, to complete and understand how to be the basis of a mentor, and it helps you, because we've added into this one, how to produce lessons. But really it teaches about teaching and learning, the assessment cycle, and the fundamentals of safety. So it covers 3 main things, 3 main areas. Now, if you want to teach in any business or company in the country, that is the qualification you have to do. So you'll find that trainers for Marks and Spencers, for BP, for all the rest of it, they do those items. But of course, because they're working with adults, they are doing things in a way that really references from maybe 13 or 14 years old in school. Now, what we used to do is we used to take people on this ET, because this is only a couple of £100, and if they were satisfactory in completing that, they could have gone on to the certificate level 4, but we moved them onto the year loan program. This can be anything up to, this could be a month to 3 months, depending on how quickly they complete it. And this is then much bigger. This takes at least a year, and that is a diploma. And the reason that we actually went with this way is because you start with the AET, you go up to the DET, and then you can move off into different areas. So as we said earlier, the level 5 here is actually the equivalent of doing 2 years of university. So it's just before completing your final degree, and it's a very effective course. Now, the DET, I'm actually a fan of. I think it's, even though I did, I've got a PGC and a couple of masters and the rest of it, I really like the PGC, the DET, sorry, for the following reason. I'm just going to look for the brochure for it here. Obviously, I can tell that's probably absolutely tiny. In fact, what will be better is I'm going to pop back and I'm going to go to the package that has it. And if I go to the DET, just as one of the courses, brilliant there. Hopefully you can see that quite clearly. It's made up of certain units which are very very, very flexible. So here you see I've got unit 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are mandatory. So developing teaching and learning and assessment, theories, principles, models, education, and wider professional practice. Probably you can hear and actually sounds like a lot like things that we would cover in the PGCE. But what was really, really fascinating for me with that is in the second part, here you see actually unit 4, and then we're unit 15, unit 27, unit 32, unit 35. It's very, very different. There are 40 separate units that you can look to bolt on, piece together, and add in terms of what you want a student to complete.
Right, sorry to interrupt. We can't see your screen at the moment, unfortunately.
I am so, that whole time you couldn't see my screen?
Yeah.
I am so sorry, colleagues. You should have told me ages ago, so sorry about that, colleagues. I'm just going back through again, so apologies. I just come here. Did you see this bit at all, Sawa?
That's the part we didn't see. That's right.
I'm so sorry, and there was me thinking I was on a roll, so I do apologize for that. Thank you very much for pointing out. So just to come back, hopefully some of it made sense, colleagues, but this is where I was talking about the award in education training and then the diploma in education training, level 3 and level 5 as we're moving up and through. And what I was showing you here was I was just coming to the units in the DET level 5 where you've got the developing, the units I mentioned earlier. And what I was just explaining was there's 40 units together, 36 other units that bolt on top of these ones to actually give you a very, very bespoke thing. Now, why is this important in an alternate route? Well, in the ones that we've picked here, you can pick obviously literacy and numeracy, which is the one we teach because we try to actually move them towards English and maths, which is the majority of the teachers we teach kind of develop and need those. But there's one that's got inclusive practice. There's elements that have got the working with special needs. There's elements that have got elements of working with ESL learners. There's loads of action research projects that you can take. So there's lots and lots of different units, and we've just picked these 4 to be kind of a wide-ranging item. Now, the beauty about this as well is, and this is the part that might surprise you, there's probably many candidates that you've come across that are in a situation where, for one reason or another, they haven't got the ability or the situation to afford to do a degree. And that, for me, is one of the modern crimes. I don't think it's right that we have to pay £36,000, even though obviously we all did it, in order to get the right to teach people, especially when there's people out there who've done foundation degrees, or maybe people who've got lots of worldly experience. If you start them with an AET or a DET, you get them into a situation where they're running forward and moving, and they can then start to develop. Now, down the line, they may be worth investing in a degree in, but it's not utterly compulsory, especially in secondary, because from there, you move into a different realm. If you take the AET and the DET, you can move into a different realm of space. But the elements that I'll show you on that one then, just before, is going to, probably some of you will have heard of this, some of you have seen it. It's moving on to the Ipgc. Now, the Ipgc, as you can probably imagine, it's an internet PGCE, and basically it's far cheaper from the typical one that you would do with the normal university because, one, it is detached from QTS. So normally when you do a PGCE, your QTS qualification cost is included within it. So it gives you a massive cost reduction in terms of how much it's done. And I've seen these are with different universities for £3,000 to £5,000. When you consider that sometimes you can find maybe the QTS for maybe anywhere around £4,000, you've got like £1,000, maybe £2,000 off the normal way of actually doing things. And you also get a situation in there where you have the knowledge. Now, the main thing about the PGC is they're not IPGCs, they're not giving you a placement, they're not sorting you out, they're not actually coming with you, they're not doing that term 1, term 2 in 2 different places. It's really just about the knowledge. What do you learn from those things? And then the experiential items, well, that's different again. So to pass an Ipgc, you don't have the same requirement in what you do, in being able to go and come with regards to getting the spaces and the places that you may or may not need in terms of the development of the placements, sorry, in terms of that. That has to be something that's built by the candidate themselves, something that they understand, something that they actually want to develop and go through. Now, the key thing with the Ipgc is the fact that you don't have to go to an institution either. And it's really, really helpful to be in a situation where you can actually detach, as we were talking about earlier, away from the need and away from the time constraint of having to go somewhere, and having to also be in a situation where it can affect into your daily rhythm of life, where you need to do something after school, you need to do something after this, and you need to do something after that. It really makes a big, big difference. And one of the last things I'll say on that, and this is the part that I believe in most, I've had a lot of people come to me with qualifications of X, Y, Z, and they can do blah, 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 blah. But the problem has always been necessarily when it comes to classroom practice, sometimes the qualification is left a little bit lacking. And what I've always found is the knowledge and best practice is where I would support and encourage my colleagues always to go and get, because I don't care how much you know if you can't put it into practice. Whereas people who put it into practice, it's really, really easy to start building on their knowledge and helping and adding their knowledge. Now, the belief that I have for this is to such a great extent that if I turn here and just show you again my screen, so can you just make sure that you've got my screen here showing Guide Teacher Development?
Yes, we can see it now.
So colleagues, this is one of the elements that we have where we believed in this to the point where, you know, when I left being a head teacher, what I made was basically a Netflix teacher training package for schools. Now, what I mean by that is, you have here in the packages that are available, you have all the different packages and training. So here you have the award in education and training I mentioned. Here you have the HLTA, the DET, QTS, QTLS. Everything is there to help people to develop all the way from their very first days in school when they're actually starting to think about becoming a higher level teaching assistant, etc., but all the way through to becoming a teaching and learning lead in the school, or maybe a Senko. One of the main things that we actually wanted to do was be in a situation where we helped people and encouraged people to be able to access that knowledge that I spoke about earlier. Because, as I said, the knowledge to me is the key thing. It is the part where we need most people in the world to know what they're doing and then be able to put it into practice. So we built this bank and resource of 2,000 videos over 30 courses to allow people to access that knowledge in a really, really deep way. And if you'd like to know more about it, I think, Sawa, if you kindly put up a link, you can go and have a look around the website, and that just gives you an idea. Because on there, we start from being a teaching assistant on your first day, all the way through to QTS, all the way to being a middle leader with ratified courses along the way. Now, the Ipgc is a very, very good offer, an opportunity for most people, especially with regards to primary. But the thing that I would like to touch on now, which is what most people think is, or I think is the biggest alternative, is something called QTLS. Now, obviously, you know that qualified teacher status, and this is what QTS stands for. And in the QTLS, it's a qualified teacher in learning and skills. So essentially, in 2012, Michael Gove gave parity to a normally used quality or adult qualification to be used in British schools as part of the way to tackle the teacher crisis. Now, what we used it for was essentially a way for people who didn't have a degree to be able to do the level 3, the level 5, and the QTLS within a 3-year period to actually get themselves up to a professional formation. Now, in terms of how you would posit this, obviously, because I'm showing this to you for the very first time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split my screen and I'm going to show you some of the elements from both the QTS and the QTS, because some people obviously hold it down to be, you know, a different item or a different way, and obviously it is different because it's based originally for colleges, but they've made it more robust over time. So they've added things to it more and more, and it becomes more and more like the QTS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to individual package on the side here, and I'm going to go to QTS. And then on this side here, qualified teacher status, and then I'm going to go to the same element again, where I go to QTLS. And in this space here, the elements with regards to it, and obviously you can see that the price difference. But if I get the brochure for each one, or if I start even going into the, yeah, actually I'll do exactly as I went last time. I'll start looking at the units in each one, because that will help. So if I go there and there, and this one I will go to QTS, and this one I will go to QTLS, you'll see here that there's elements that are around the same item. So here we're looking at professional values and attributes, and obviously you can cross-reference it with some of the things from QTS. Here we're looking at professional knowledge and understanding, and again, it's broken down and you can actually parry them across the different elements there. And of course you have the professional skills, which is, you know, a large part of parts 8 and 9 in terms of it. So it is very, very thorough. It's really, really reflective, and it's interestingly, the QTS has to be done in 3 months, whereas the QTLS can be done in 6. So it does give you more time as well, an alternate route to kind of really help and support any member of staff that might want to go and complete that alternate route. Now, I hope that gives you an introduction to it. Obviously, you can go to the website and click on both to find out more. I'm just going to make this screen larger again, so I have the full control that I so need in this instance. I'll be turning off my screen share and starting my presentation again. So I hope that gives you an idea of what different kind of qualification routes are there. Now, these are all they're done, and I suppose that the reason that I say it more than anything is because this worked for me in my school, and that's why I probably started with some of the items that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, with power to the school, knowledge, attaching knowledge, getting people to practice how you can do it, being able to recruit more locally. Because when you do that, an AET, the investment is starting to see, well, do I want to back someone? When it's a PGC and it's £9,000, that's a big question. From the teacher's point of view, or the trainee's point of view as well, £9,000 is a big question. But where you say, like, look, you're going to be a teaching assistant for 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is, and then we're building our own program to help you do X, Y, Z, which we did. It's just the flexibility is fantastic, and then they don't feel the guilt, and you don't feel the guilt, because if you can get someone all the way from to a position where they can do to be qualified for a secondary school or college, and you do it with £5,000 as opposed to doing with £36,000, well, it makes a massive, massive difference. So it's really, really important to note that these are options available to you. And you may say, well, I don't know about change and the rest, and that's fine. But you have to remember that the government's always trying to do this. We had the researchers in schools. We had the GTP. We had the troops into schools. And now, obviously, you know, there's a teaching apprenticeship coming, which is exactly this. And one of the elements that we did with the items that we put together on Guide is because we believe in it strongly, is we actually had that library of ready. So what the government's doing now, we were ready for, and that's why we were able to jump so quickly. So I can just confirm, can you see my screen again?
Yes, we can, Leon.
Thank you very much. And so here you see in this part where I say, expanding your understanding of primary school teaching, this is our Ipgce for primary. And then when you look at it again, you say, okay, well, here's the one for secondary. And then here again is the one for SEN. And these are all different items that, you know, we really, really believe in. And the way that the system actually works is quite straightforward. Someone comes in, they have a different level of qualifications that they might want to go into, and then they go in and they simply have to watch a video. Sorry, I've just gone to the wrong place. I'm just going to jump in and say a teaching assistant course. I have an introduction to teacher training, and then I will watch a video, and all our videos, 99.9% of our videos are really fast. Welcome to this. And then I also get what we call a assessment question built into the video. So after I've watched something, I get to this stage here, and then I can start to actually answer in the video. It makes it so much easier to train, because I don't have to go to search where the work is, to find out from lots of different people what I have to do. I'm in a situation where at any point I can develop and run and be in charge of my own training. And that's what I was talking about really early on in the presentation as well, where I was saying it's really about giving people the knowledge rather than being in a situation where you are continually just waiting week on week. You want them to binge on the knowledge. I think I was mentioning it here, because when they can binge on the knowledge and watch all the videos, they're ready in class quicker. And that's the idea as well. When they complete all the work and answer all the questions in the videos, it builds up in their workbook, and then you can make sure that they never feel like they're finishing, especially when we have a range of qualifications that start from the very first days that you're with us, all the way through to having hundreds of other qualifications. Now, hopefully that gives you some idea of what's available, what's out there, what's useful, etc. And as ever, I'd love to know your thoughts coming back to them. I know we've only had a few people on today, so thank you very much. I'm so sorry about that, Gertrude and Susan. Please do expect my apologies. That is silly of me, because my PowerPoint didn't upload. I wasn't seeing the chat, so I do apologize. But hopefully that gives you some ideas on the kind of things that you can use, and maybe you're hearing that for the first time, what the AET, the DET, and the QTLS are. They are not yet popular routes, but they are no different in the ability to be able to link, develop, and derive quality teachers through using those items, etc. Thank you very much for joining. If anything's of use, please feel free to message me, to get in touch, to have a one-to-one. Really appreciate you giving us your time to actually understand, or to be exposed to some of these new ideas. And yeah, I'll just stop now. Just if anyone has any feedback or thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Otherwise, I look forward to you soon. Just see if I missed any questions. No, so far, but please feel free to ask a question before we go. So I just say thank you very much as well for helping me throughout this.
No problem, Leon. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for your time and for joining me. I really look forward to seeing you again. Please feel free to hit me up on a one-to-one if you want. Talk more about how it was implemented or show you more of the system. And yeah, take care. Have a lovely evening.